Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I am from Singapore, the country that faces the greatest food security and water security, right? So we don't have land to grow food. 90% of the food that we eat in Singapore is imported, and the government wants to increase that to 30%. And how can we do that? It's almost impossible, right? So the government encourages rooftop farming, indoor farming, right, and plant-based meat, alternative proteins. But I think, in my opinion, that will not solve the problem because, people are used to eating real food, right? So for that, I have to say, if I want to use India as an example, how food security is being addressed, I have to say India is an amazing country. From the 50s and 60s, ship to mouth, okay? In the 50s and 60s, is ship to mouth, meaning you get a lot of food donated to you during those days. But today, India is a food export powerhouse. $50 billion of food is exported out of India, right, today. And India is also the largest food exporter in terms of rice. $11 billion worth of rice is exported. What does that mean? Does that mean that there's no room for improvement? Lots of room for improvement. I was over in Gujarat just 2 weeks ago, and I could see that yield of many crops are way below the top yielding countries in the world for the same crops. So if India can improve yield alone, your $50 billion worth of exports will be $100 billion, $200 billion, right? So there's a lot of room for improvement just by changing some cultural practices. Instead of flooded irrigated rice, you can actually grow rice on an upland basis, right? Using drip irrigation and mulching. As simple as that, right? A lot of people in India are saying, yes, CS, you just told us that India is the largest rice exporter in the world, $11 billion, but you know that we're exporting precious water, of India overseas. Now, you don't have to export precious water. You don't have to use so much water to grow rice. You can actually do drip irrigation, right? And drip irrigation is still, the penetration is still very low in India in spite of government incentives for farmers to convert to drip irrigation. And also I saw in Gujarat 2 weeks ago, crops like banana, sugarcane, okra, is all furrow irrigated, right? Lots of water being wasted. You can actually use drip irrigation, right? So this is what I say to everyone. It's as simple as converting it to drip irrigation and plastic mulching. That is what I call low-tech, high-impact, super returns kind of technology. We're not talking about AI. We're not talking about drones. We're not talking about digital agriculture, blockchain. We don't need all that. It's as simple as just changing some cultural practices. So, in my opinion, we have no problem feeding 10 billion people by 2050, simply because there's still a lot of scope to grow more without actually increasing agricultural production using more land. But just on the land alone, did you know that 60% of the world's arable land that is not yet tapped lies in sub-Saharan Africa? And there are millions of hectares more in Brazil. We're not talking about tearing down the Amazon forest to grow more. So we don't need to even grow more to feed the 9 or 10 billion people that we're going to have by 2050, right? We just have to increase yield. And there's so many technologies that can do that, right? So, new genomics technology, gene editing, right? And what I had said earlier, low tech, high impact, super returns kind of technology. So there are lots of technologies out there that are not even deployable today. They are not deployed simply because the farmers are not getting a return on investment if they would adopt some of these new technologies, right? So we're talking about farmer dignity. What dignity that is more important than making farmers earn a good living, right? So the poor farmers need to make a good living. That's the greatest dignity that we can give to farmers, right? But then there's always the conflict, right? If you increase farmer income, then consumers start to complain. We have to pay more for food, right? So there's always this kind of conflicting issues. So overall, I have no issue. I have full confidence that we can feed the additional population, and even then with sustainable agriculture and regenerative agriculture, right? Because of what I said earlier. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. So, न्यूज़ सिंगापुर से हैं और वो ये कह रहे हैं कि सिंगापुर में 90% जो वो खाना खाते हैं सब इम्पोर्ट होता है। तो बेसिकली सिंगापुर ज्यादातर अपना खाना उगाता ही नहीं है और वो ये कह रहे हैं कि इंडिया से $50 बिलियन वर्थ हम यहाँ पर एक्सपोर्ट करते हैं खाना। तो क्लियरली इंडिया जो हम सोचते हैं समझते हैं उससे काफी बेहतरीन कर रहा है। उनका ये भी कहना है कि वो पिछले हफ्ते गुजरात में थे और उन्होंने ये नोटिस किया कि कई बार हम यहाँ पर बात करते हैं कि हाँ पानी की कमी है, खेत में पानी नहीं आया, लेकिन कई जगहों पर ओवर वाटरिंग भी हो रही है, यानी कि पानी वेस्ट हो रहा है जब हम अपने खेतों में पानी दे रहे हैं। तो कुछ एक चीजें हैं छोटी छोटी जो यहाँ पर करेक्ट की जा सकती हैं और उससे काफी बेहतर हम यहाँ पर फसल बनता हुआ भी देख सकते हैं। इसलिए यू टॉक्ड अबाउट वाटर रिसोर्सेज एंड वाटर mismanagement that perhaps you saw in Gujarat as well. What's your sense on that? Did you speak to those farmers? What are they doing about that?
Yeah, I think if farmers get the right information, this is where our extension service comes in. I think that is still very primitive in many countries, including in India. There's a lot of room for improvement. Extension means getting information down to the farm level. It is a major challenge in India because farms are relatively small, 1 to 2 hectares per farm on average. So reaching out to the millions of farmers, it's a major challenge.
On stage to talk